The direct USB mode of HDDSuperClone is meant for drives that are USB only and cannot be connected directly as SATA, or it's also meant for drives such as USB flash drives or devices such as NVMe drives, where you would use a USB adapter to them because they can also not be connected via SATA. There's no adapter for that. And it's pretty much meant for devices that you're having issues with that you cannot read normally, say through the normal pass-through mode, or like the CSI pass-through mode, or NVMe drives don't even have the ability to do pass-through. You have to read them generic. But if you have problems with the drive that's either USB only or something you need to adapt to USB, then that is a good purpose for direct USB mode. How well the direct USB mode works relies entirely on the USB bridge and how it reacts. For ATA drives, it may or may not support soft and hard resets. There's a special bulk-only reset that's supposed to be specifically for USB devices, mass storage devices. How the device reacts to that, be it a flash drive or a USB adapter, is entirely up to the USB bridge or device itself. And also, in the event of ATA drives, the difference between the drive, how the drive reacts and how the bridge reacts are two different things, because the drive may not be reacting to what the bridge is telling it to do. The primary benefit of the direct USB mode is to be able to use timeouts and not rely on waiting for the operating system. You can either use the timeouts to send a reset or using a relay to perform a power cycle on the device. And again, if you're using the direct USB mode, you probably already are having a problem with the device in regular pass-through mode or some other mode where you need to utilize that function. The other benefit is for slow responding drives, because you can specify a very large cluster size, which can improve reading speed on those drives greatly. The timer settings are a little bit different in direct USB mode. Your soft reset time is still the basis of your timeout, your initial timeout for how long to wait before for a non-responding drive before trying to perform reset functions. The hard reset time is actually the time before performing the next reset function if the drive is not responding from whatever reset was initially performed. The initial busy wait time and the busy wait time are timers. You can read what they are down here for read capacity and identify or inquiry commands during the process of checking to see if the drive is functioning. As a general rule, the general timeout should always be at least the sum of all these, and actually it should always be double the sum of all these. That's the normal rule. With USB direct mode, you should probably double that, meaning this should be 4 times anything, and all of the timers you have up here. Now here's something else. If you have a drive that is functioning, or you can at least access it in, say, one of the pass-through modes, but then you try to use USB direct mode and it just fails every time and you can't get anywhere, come in here and start turning these up. Like turn up the initial busy wait time, the busy wait time, the reset timeout. Make sure you crank up the general timeout to be greater than like 4 times, at least 4 times of everything, to make sure that it doesn't time out, because the USB will perform multiple processes, and it also has everything to do with how many of these are checked down here. Each one of these can go through an entire reset process of its own, which can take use up all the timers, and you just need to make sure that the general timeout is high enough to accommodate for turning up all of the timers. There are 4 different USB reset choices. The first one is USB bulk reset. This reset is also actually performed for every other one of the other 3 resets. It's a standard reset. It has to be done to the USB device to get everything back up and going again after any other form of reset. The bottom one here is a port reset, which is supposed to reset port communications. It may or may not have any effect. Sometimes you may wish to uncheck this because it will just add time. Again, as I stated earlier, every one of these resets can go through the entire reset process, which can wait for all the timers. So if you're trying to power cycle a drive as quickly as possible, you would probably only want to choose whichever one of these resets is the most functional for your purpose, that seems to work the best, and only have that one checked. Again, if you're going to choose, now the soft reset and hard reset are for ATA drives only, meaning basically a conventional hard drive that is USB only connection, and you can't connect it via SATA, but it is still a regular, say, spinning hard drive. If you choose one of these resets, you may as well disable the USB bulk reset, because each one of these resets, as I stated, also incorporates the bulk reset. So you don't want to do the bulk reset, and then if that doesn't work, then you do the soft reset, because you're just doubling the amount of time everything takes. So you do your best to pick the reset that seems to work for you. Direct USB mode has 2 modes, actually. There is direct USB and direct USB ATA. The direct USB ATA is meant for physically spinning drives, meaning it's basically a normal hard drive, would normally be SATA, except they've removed the SATA connectors and put a USB bridge on it, so you can only connect to it via USB. But it still will accept pass-through ATA commands. That is the only purpose for this mode. Any other device, such as a USB flash drive, a card reader, USB to NVMe adapter, you would use the normal direct USB mode. Direct USB mode will take the drive away from the operating system, but when you do initially plug the drive into the computer via USB, the computer will recognize it and potentially try to read it, and hopefully not do anything with it if you're using a good version of Linux with the auto mount turned off. So I'm going to pick USB ATA mode. I've already got a project chosen. I'm going to choose my drive. Oh, yes, and here it is. The other thing is, when you choose direct USB mode, and you go to choose a drive, it is going to show you whatever the USB bridge or the USB device itself calls itself. And this is the device, like the manufacturer and device code. And you see it calls itself Western Digital External HDD. In this case, this is actually an adapter from an older Passport drive that's plugged into, believe it or not, a Hitachi drive. Because I don't have any actual USB only drives that have any sort of failures to demonstrate. But you'll see this, and there's a card reader that's also attached. So one way to tell if you are, what the device is, if you're not sure, simply unplug it. If you don't have it plugged in, you go to choose a source drive. You see you only have one choice. So now if I unplug drive back in, give it a minute, and you're going to see over here it's going to show up as an available device, because it's there. It's got a partition on it that can be seen by Linux, although it's not mounting. So then now I can see that it has appeared here, so I'm going to choose that. So now I've chosen my device. So you saw that there when I unplugged it. I'm going to go for relay settings now, just to demonstrate, because if you're going to want to use a relay on this, I've got the YCush 3 hooked up to it here. You're going to want to go choose a primary relay board, and if you have something hooked up, it'll show up. If you don't, you're not going to have anything here. If you have, so now I've chosen that, so I can actually go over here and say power it off. You can see it disappeared. Power it on. Give it a minute, a few seconds, I should say, and it reappears. So now the downside to this reappearing is that if you have a device, a drive, that as soon as it starts reading at the beginning of the drive, or the few places that Linux does try to read, and it tries to read several areas, some of which I don't really understand, but some of it has something to do with maybe GPT partition tables or something, that it's just looking for data, and it reads a bunch of different spots in the drive, and if any one of those spots causes it to lock up, you're all done. You cannot read that drive via USB, or at least not typically, not as long as the OS sees it. So there is an additional feature in here where you can disable mass USB storage driver. Now this will disable the USB storage driver, meaning that once you do this, you cannot plug any other USB devices into it. So if you're planning on cloning from USB to USB, another USB attached storage device, or imaging to a USB attached storage device, you would not be able to do that if you choose this. And I'm going to do that right now. I'm just going to disable it. It gives you a warning. Well, confirmation, I should say. Click OK, and you can see it disappeared. Now, if I power it off and power it back on again, it's not going to show up here. I still have the ability to... Oh, it actually even told me that I no longer have a destination, or a source, I mean. And oh, I didn't choose a destination. Sorry, that's my fault. So you can still connect to it. I can even get smart from it right now, which it's got issues. And it is fully connectable, but the OS doesn't see it at all. Again, the downside is any other USB device I plug into this computer right now will not be recognized by Linux as any sort of storage device. It will not be able. You won't be able to use any other sort of external USB storage device when you have that mode in place. And you can also restore it, which is definitely recommended. If you don't need it, don't use it. So now it's back. So if I power this off, power it back on again, wait a few seconds, we can see that it came back, the partition came back, so it knows that it's there. And that is the basic explanation of well, how to use the different settings and modes and features of the direct USB mode.